I'm out of breath because I just walked up the stairs. So this is not really it's kind of a wish list for me, but this is like a wish list for you. And I wanted to focus specifically on anthuriums from Indonesia because you can find some real gems from Indonesia, and I think historically they haven't really gotten much press, much respect. Huxley's coming up now. Oh, you are a heavy boy. He brought his little antler up here to chew on while I film, I guess. You want to stay in here with mom? Okay, say hi to your friends and you can eat your antler, okay? Hi friends. I should be a ventriloquist. Hi friends, how you doing? Try to be quiet, okay? What was I even saying? Oh yeah, so Indonesia exports tons of anthuriums, as I'm sure all of you know, and it's almost like a treasure hunt to me. You have to like just kind of wade through a lot of like random IDs and find like a really beautiful one. So in my very first video on this channel, I showcased my favorite plants of the year of 2021. Yeah, 2021. So I did like a roundup of my year-end favorites, and I went on a little rant saying that like people, not everybody, but it's very common in the plant community, at least it was back then, for people to kind of turn their nose up at Indonesian anthuriums because they don't really have like traceable lineage. You don't have like the progeny. I don't remember exactly what I said in that video, but in my mind, it's no different than a lot of these no ID anthuriums that are circulated in like the Western market that like originate from the US, for example. I'm sorry, Huxley is just snoring in the background. So for example, Anthurium red crystallinum. We don't know exactly the parentage and the lineage that produced red crystallinum. And when I made that video, people were really like brushing off Indonesian anthuriums as like kind of just not really worthy of time and money. But I feel like the plant community can credit Cartel Dawn for like a big part of bringing Indonesian anthuriums more to the forefront. It wasn't really until they like showed up on the scene and like put all their like marketing power behind it and really integrated themselves into the community and like talked to people that Indonesian anthuriums started to become more covetable and just kind of more popular in the hobby. So I wanted to show you guys 12 anthuriums that I think are worth keeping your eye on, maybe putting on your wish list. So I just want to preface this by saying if you're importing from Indonesia, proceed with caution. And by that I mean Indonesia is known for not keeping track of who's bred with who, and the IDs are very murky at best. So you really have to just buy the plant for what it looks like and not care about what the actual ID is. And they will definitely be selling plants under the wrong ID. This happens all the time. So you have to either like source from somewhere like Cartel Dawn or other like very reputable Indonesian nurseries, or just import the plant for what it looks like. Case in point, this is what we did with the King of Spades. So we imported this, I would say almost more than 2 years ago, and at the time we didn't know what it was. It was called Red Magnificum, and we were like, look at this round juicy guy with the feathery silver veins. We want it. And there was nothing to stop us from loving this plant because like it wasn't for the ID that we bought it, because so often exporters will be selling plants under a name that is like very hyped. Like for example, at the time they were selling a lot of things as Dark Mama, and there's no real proof that like Dark Mama even existed in Indonesia at the time, like true Dark Mama, which is a Papillolamnum waraquianum hybrid. They were selling Ace of Spades, which were not Ace of Spades. So you'll see a lot of people selling Ace of Spades, or actually back then you would see a lot of people importing Ace of Spades from Indonesia and selling it as such, but it wasn't actually Ace of Spades. But the really fun thing about Indonesian hybrids is that they're just so random, and there's probably such complex genetics within them because they've been like hybridized so many times. They're probably not super like keeping plants separated, so the plants that are growing next to each other are breeding with each other, and so you end up with plants with really interesting characteristics sometimes. There are definitely people in the hobby that really hate that about anthuriums. They really hate that just anyone can hybridize, and they're hybridizing plants that they don't deem worthy to be hybridized. So yeah, if you're importing from Indonesia, just keep your eye on the plant. Don't buy something just because they say it's something that it is. I feel like there's only a handful of exporters that I can safely say you can trust their IDs, because when they don't know the IDs, they will freely say that it's a no ID Anthurium, and that's something that Cartel Dawn does a lot. By the way, this video is not at all affiliated with Cartel Dawn. I'm a big fan. The plants I'm going to show you, a lot of them are going to be available from them, but also with other sellers. But you kind of have to shop around for sellers that are selling like specific cultivars. And you'll know what I mean when I show you the plants. These are like very complex hybrids, but they're sold under a specific hybrid name. But if you search the hashtags, you're going to find so many sellers selling plants that don't quite look like what you're looking for, in which case I would maybe steer clear of them. So I definitely wanted to show you this plant being like a big Indonesian hybrid win, and the other one being the Dark Phoenix. Like, these two plants are my favorite Indonesian imports of all time. Possibly up there in my favorite Anthuriums in my whole entire collection. The IDs of both of them are very murky. Nobody really knows what they are. They suggest that Dark Phoenix is possibly just a variety of pure Papillolamnum. So for me, both of them were purchased purely on how they looked and like the characteristics of the plant based on the photos from the seller. So if you're not on a plant ban, then stay tuned for some juicy Anthuriums. Personally, I'm not technically on a plant ban. I'm kind of like on a plant diet. Even though I'm technically self-employed, I kind of think of myself as unemployed because I've never been self-employed before. So I don't trust that I can stay within my means, because I don't even know what my means are. So I'm not really looking for any of these plants. Given the opportunity, it would be really hard for me to say no. So without further ado, let's just get started. I actually made a proper list this time, and I've got photos prepared so I can look at the plant as you guys look at the plant. And these are going to be in no particular order. I've kind of sectioned them off in kind of like ones that somewhat look the same, maybe have like similar lineage down the line. I'm going to be popping the photos here, so I'm going to swivel you around just a bit. First plant, some of you have suggested this to me as a plant I should be owning, and I feel like you guys that are suggesting this to me really understand my taste because it's beautiful. I only saw this one for the first time last year, and it was on Facebook. This is Anthurium Red Spider. It's obviously a Forgetii hybrid. That's all we know. It looks so perverse and wrong, but so right at the same time. I'm looking at the photo right now, and it does look pretty dark, but it kind of looks like the exposure was turned down on this plant. I don't think it's an ultra dark Anthurium. I just think maybe it can be, you know, darkened. So as is the case with everything on this list, the parentage is unknown. Like, you can kind of take a crack at guessing what it might contain. So obviously Forgetii. I'm guessing Papillolamnum as well. Looking at the sinus, the way it protrudes, and you know, the way that the veins kind of like come out 3D, and the redness, I'm guessing that Magnificum is in there somehow. I couldn't find a petiole picture, but unless Magnificum takes up like 50% of the DNA, I feel like the square petiole doesn't often come out. I'm not a botanist, so this is just my thoughts. Yeah, I think what I really like about this plant is just like how wrong it looks, but it's like so consistently wrong from leaf to leaf, because where the petiole insertion is, it's like it always like kind of puffs out, you know, from the plant, and the whole leaf just doesn't look flat, and it just looks kind of like, you know, I don't like is this good enough as a explanation? Yeah, so I love this plant. I know a few people have imported this to the States. I've seen it kind of in the Anthurium groups. I haven't seen any in Canada, but it's not to say nobody has it. And I don't know what kind of price this goes for. I think it would probably go for a few $100s at least for a small plant or like a cutting. But yeah, I love Forgetii, and I love just wrong looking plants. So this checks a lot of boxes for me. So the next one is a Forgetii Papillolamnum hybrid. Whether it's purely those two plants, I don't think anybody knows, but it's called Velvet Mask. So this one is like a dark very textured, kind of bullate, elongated forgetti, which is a lot less perverse looking than the red spider. I think there's quite a big demand for forgetti with tons of like bumpy texture right now. Forgetti that have that kind of texture are very, maybe not very hyped, but there's definitely a market of people who like are super obsessed with them, and I can see why, because that texture is so mesmerizing, and I guess I'm just like a texture girl, so the velvet mask is very appealing for that reason. You just want to touch it. I don't know if the veins are always this like neon green, whether they could be like white, silver, I'm not really sure, but the pictures that I've seen, they're either like kind of yellowy neon green or what looks kind of like whitish green. It's really pretty. It's really dark, and the vein is very clean and minimal in that texture. Again, I haven't seen this one, definitely not locally to me. I haven't really seen this on the Anthurium groups, but maybe I just missed it. But it's beautiful. I really love a forgetti hybrid. I think forgetti make a great parent because you know how like corgi crosses, like a corgi husky cross, a corgi Rottweiler cross, it just looks like the corgi put on a Rottweiler costume. That's what I feel about forgetti hybrids. It just looks like a forgetti dressed up as another plant for Halloween. Alex, you want to snore a little bit less? Just a little bit less? No? You want to snore big time? Okay, you snore big time. So if you love forgetti as much as I do, it's not even that you have to go for one of these cultivars or hybrids, or these named hybrids. You could just be shopping around for forgetti hybrids and just buy one that looks cool. And chances are, if they're not marketing it as one of these cultivars, it's not gonna cost you that much. So those two are my forgetti hybrid picks. The next one this is probably, is it? Maybe. It's possibly my favorite one on this whole list. It didn't originate from Cartel Dawn, but this was a plant that he owned, and he named it Anthurium basilisk. It seems that this was a Crystallineum hybrid that he obtained, you know, in the past, and he's grown it out, and like he's discovered that it displays some really awesome characteristics. Like when I look at this plant, I'm just like, who designed the perfect Anthurium for me? It looks like it was made in a lab. First of all, I really love Crystallineum. I think the venation is just out of this world, beautiful, ethereal, fantastic, majestic, amazing, but like it has so much more too. So let's dissect this for a second. The venation looks so much like another Crystallineum thingy that I really covet, which is the chocolate Crystallineum, where the veins kind of like do this forking thing at the edges of the leaf margin, and it looks super sinister. The emergent leaf is so red, very similar to a lot of Crystallineum, but I find my black Crystallineum from Tropicals has this very like dark maroony red emergent leaf. That freaking sinus, that like V shape from leaf to leaf, sometimes it'll have like a very wide sinus, sometimes it's just like this like perfect V, and then like the cherry on top of the cake is that ruffled leaf margin. What the heck? It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I can't. I'm just zooming in on this leaf. Every leaf has that ruffly margin. It's so stunning. I want it so bad. I want this plant so badly. I haven't taken a look at his like what's for sale section, but if this was ever on there, it'd be really hard to pass that up. Oh wait, I have more to say. It's so black. It looks as though the leaf blade is very smooth. It doesn't have a lot of bumpy texture. It doesn't have that like grainy, leathery look, which is really nice because it makes that venation really pop. That contrast is really like just vivid. It's something special. I don't know how I've lived my life without this, but it almost feels like I can't breathe another breath until I own it. So even though I said at the beginning of the video that I'm not actively shopping for plants, maybe I'll make an exception for this one. Maybe. If you guys ever see this thing for sale, please let me know. I would be very, very interested. as much as I want to keep talking about this plant, we must move on. Next one is also like a Crystallineum adjacent hybrid. So this one is also a picture from Cartel Dawn and I'm showing you. I don't think that he bred this plant. I think this was another no ID that ended up in his collection. This is Anthurium Bigfoot. So it's got a lot of characteristics that are similar to the basilisk, but it doesn't have that like ruffly margin. It's a lot more of like a classic cordate Anthurium heart shape. But one thing I love about the venation is that it's very reminiscent of an Anthurium carloblackiae because of the way that it just fades into nothingness. Like the closer it gets to the leaf margin, it looks really dark. Like I'm looking at this leaf and it looks like a pretty much hardened leaf, or maybe a freshly hardened leaf, and it's almost black. The emergent leaves have this beautiful purpley red, and it looks like that redness kind of stays right in the sinus for a little bit, because when I look at like a plant with like multiple leaves, the older leaves still have that red sinus, and I don't think that it would last forever, but it sticks around for quite a long time. But like even the baby plant is so stinking precious. Look at that venation. It's so spidery and just, yeah, I love that. I love that fading out silver at the edges. I don't know why it's called Bigfoot, to be honest. Maybe it sizes up really easily, possibly. That's, I guess, the logical place to go when plants are named after something massive like gigantium. You would expect that plant to get big pretty quickly. I'm expecting it would size up quicker than, say, a forgetii, which takes quite a long time to get size on it. Yeah, this one also stunning. If I was to pick this one or the basilisk, I'd definitely choose the basilisk, but I would not sniff at this one either. Next one is also in the Crystallineum arena. This is Cartel Dawn's Queen Crystallineum. This is definitely not a plant that's going to be exclusive to Cartel Dawn. It's a Crystallineum that he's given the name to. It's super narrow, very elongated. It looks like someone just took the Crystallineum image and just like stretched it. It looks kind of wrong. It looks like it's warped, to be honest. I feel like this is kind of Crystallineum where you can kind of stumble upon something like this from a Crystallineum seller that has propagated by seed. It is possible that that seed batch will produce a Crystallineum that's super elongated, but is it going to be elongated to this extent? Crystallineum is definitely one of the Anthuriums where I feel like it doesn't get as much hype as it deserves, which it makes sense because Crystallineum's been around for like a billion years and everyone's kind of seen one. So naturally, I think people are, you know, always looking for the newer thing that they haven't seen before, but it will always be an Anthurium like very, very close to my heart. I think it was, for a lot of people, the gateway to velvety dark Anthuriums. Maybe it's the symmetry. Maybe it's the symmetry of it, the darkness, the super sparkling silver venation. I think it's just a beautiful classic. I don't know that I would definitely buy one from Cartel Dawn, but if I saw an elongated Crystallineum, hell yeah, I'd be buying it, provided I could afford it. This next one, again, I'm showing you Cartel Dawn's image, but this is not going to be exclusive to them. This is a mutated form of King of Spades, or HU. So HU, or the King of Spades, has been in cultivation for like a couple of decades. So a lot of growers in Indonesia have had it for a really long time, long before the community decided to call it King of Spades. So naturally they would have hybridized it, possibly selfed it, and these seed batches can produce mutated plants. But the only account that I've seen showing this like wide sinus mutated form is Cartel Dawn. So I'm showing you his image and it's like, it's so cute. I don't need another King of Spades, but I would go for this one. If you put a wide sinus on any Anthurium, that's a pretty surefire way of making me want it, and I don't know why it is. So one of the things I obviously love about the King of Spades is that it's very round, but I love the way the venation is, because the veins, they kind of go downwards, you know what I mean? They don't kind of go laterally, they just drape down vertically to the bottom, and like when they mutate and get more silvery, with the silvery kind of feathers out. That's super cool. I find them like kind of variable, so you can get ones that almost look like tie-dye where when the feathering comes out a lot. And like that red sinus and the way they're so dark and so round and puffy, I really want this mutated one. And then just to add on to this, he also has a mutated King of Spades crossed with red Crystallineum. Like, what the fuck? It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I really want one of these. I'm not gonna go on and on about it because I've talked about the red crystal King of Spades hybrid quite a bit, but I haven't talked about this mutated form, so I guess it's worth showing you. It's just something else, man. It's something else. And just thinking about like what kind of jumbled up mess of genetics are in that plant and how beautiful that can look, because red Crystallineum, big mess of genes, King of Spades, big mess of genes, this mutation, like, wow. It's just somebody in the genetics pool knew what they were doing. All right, this next one is, I will say it's really beautiful. It's probably not like the highest up in my covet list, but it is really, really beautiful. So this is Anthurium Goliath, and I've seen this kind of circulating on Facebook. So I think that this has probably been around for a while before Cartel Dawn started to sell it. It's super dark, like very dark, very wide leaf blade with like a blue tint to it. That color is actually very, very beautiful. And I think the texture is not super smooth either. It's not bumpy, but it's got, you know how like Nigrilanum Gigi has all these like what looks like blood vessels running through it, like the veins kind of just give it a lot of like texture. It just looks a little bit rough, and it feels rough too. I think the lobes are like very round, but not quite so tall and elongated as like a Dark Phoenix or another Papillamnum hybrid, but it is really pretty. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what they're calling Hoffmanii X, but just blue. And maybe the veins are a little bit different, but it's really pretty. And I'm assuming, being called Goliath, I think maybe it's going to be one of those ones that size up very readily. The more I look at this plant, like when I stare at this picture, I'm wanting it more and more. It's very handsome. It's a very handsome plant, and it's very understated. I feel like this would be really nice in a collection. If you can grow this out in ambient conditions, I think it would look just beautiful in a room, just looking really dark and just very, very clean, very sophisticated. I think this would be a really nice plant to own, and I don't think it's gonna be one of the expensive, like, you know, high-end demand ones. I don't think it's gonna be cheap by any means, but I don't think it's gonna be one of the most expensive ones on this list. So if I saw one for sale, I would definitely consider it. If the price was right, I think this would be a really nice one to own. Even though I've had the Hoffmanii X, which looks quite similar to this plant, in my opinion, I think what really puts this plant over the edge is that blue tint, like a very cool toned. Because I didn't love the Hoffmanii X as much as I thought I would, I'm a little bit, you know, hesitant to say like I would definitely buy this plant if I came across it, but just visually, if it looks as cool toned as it does in the picture, then I think I would actually love it a lot more than I did the Hoff X. Okay, so this next one I've talked about a few times. It was actually on my wish list. I'm putting it on here now, just in case you didn't see those videos, but this is the Anthurium Red Veins Dark Phoenix. If it's not the first video you've seen of mine, you know how much I love my Dark Phoenix. So there's no doubt in my mind that if I own this plant, I would just love the crap out of it. It's got so many of the same features as Dark Phoenix. I don't know if it's at all, you know, affiliated with Dark Phoenix. Maybe they just called it that because it resembles a Dark Phoenix, but the history lineage of this plant, I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows, but I certainly don't know. It's just a beautiful, beautiful plant. If I was to choose between the two, it would be really difficult, but I think this is definitely much harder to find than the regular Dark Phoenix, just because I'm assuming it's much newer to cultivation, but it's absolutely stunning. I've seen photos of little babies. I've seen photos of larger specimens. It's just beautiful at every stage, just like the Dark Phoenix. And the hardened leaf seems like there's just more color, like someone just turned the saturation up. The hardened leaf doesn't look quite as, it just looks a little greener in general. Greener, but still dark, do you know what I mean? But it also has that like venation where it kind of like rounds out and then comes downwards. That looks very much like Dressleri, which is why so many people called it a Papillanum Dressleri hybrid. People don't really call it that anymore, but it does have a lot of the same characteristics, which can, you know, if I told you that Dressleri was one of the parents, like it'd be kind of difficult to refute that. Like looking at this picture, it looks, I would believe there was Dressleri in the parentage. So I know I said at the beginning, I'm not actively hunting for any of these plants, and I'm not like searching for it and like looking for sellers of it, but it is still on my wish list. Okay, so the next two are in like the Pappy area. All right, okay, here we go. So this next one is called Blue Papillanum. So I think it's pretty safe to say there's probably Pappy in the parentage, and then outside of that, people don't really know. It's a Papillanum that's blue. It's also very clean looking. It's very smooth looking, but it has like a very bright sinus, at least in the emergent leaf. Now I'm trying to find the photo that I had of a hardened leaf. This blue thing is very, very mesmerizing, I would say. I don't know what kind of mutation brings blue out in an anthurium, but it's very cool. It just feels a little wrong, which is like what I think, I guess I really like in plants, when it kind of looks like someone took a photo of a papillanum and just like messed with the colors and the hues and the tones and the white balance. That's what it kind of feels like to me, like someone just messed with it. And I think a lot of the papillanums that we love in this hobby are very mutated, like Ralph Linum, Fort Sherman, with those like really like exaggerated lows and the very wide sinus. I think these forms of papillanum are very mutated forms, and we're very attracted to these plants that just exhibit characteristics that we don't often see. So blue pap is probably beloved for that reason. I love pappies. I love elongated leaves. I love dark leaves, but a blue plant would be so awesome. I did actually have a Pappy hybrid that had one or two leaves that was quite blue when it was forming, but it just hardens off to green. So I sold that plant. Whether I should have sold it, I'm not sure, but I sold it nonetheless. But I think this is much more beautiful than the plant that I had. It's just a prettier shape. It's more elongated. Those lobes are a little bit more exaggerated, and that blue tends to stick around for a little bit longer. Once that leaf fully hardens, I'm pretty sure it's going to be just a cool toned but very green plant. But if you like pappies, if you like elongated dark leaves with like nice pointy lobes, why not? Why the heck not? And the next one is also a Pappy hybrid. This one is very cool. I think I like this one a bit more. This one is called X1. It's got more texture to it. It's got more of that quilted, puffy look where the leaf just kind of comes out of the veins. And it has such a cool sinus. It has kind of like, you know, that up looking sinus that the red spider had. It's super dark, and I'm sure this can be influenced by light and growing conditions, but it's really dark, and the way that those veins are just like neon yellow with a little bit of orange, that's a sight to behold. So a grower that Lauren is now partnered with, Space Hijau, aka Hendry, he does have this in his breeding program, and he is doing hybrids with X1 and other Pappy hybrids. Cartel Dawn also does these. These are two sellers that I would trust that what they're selling is indeed what they're selling. So if you're looking for something, you know, that looks like this, possibly try one of those two. Having a plant like this is really fun because if you have a whole bunch of anthuriums that have really fun emergent leaves that are very striking when they're like hardening off, and then they kind of maybe look more normal-ish when they're like fully hardened. But when you have a lot of anthuriums like this, it makes growing so much fun. Like it makes new leaves so much more exciting because you're just like waiting to see what it might look like. There's just so much serotonin when you see a leaf and it's just like striking you in the face with bright colors, different shaped lobes. I just love anthuriums for that reason, because every leaf can just suddenly look different, like leaf to leaf. I think this variability within the same plant is just not so present in philodendrons. So when you have a bunch of anthuriums with super fun new leaves, that just makes for a lot of stimulation when you're observing new growth. Okay, so the last one is probably the one where we know the ID the most, but it's also like kind of a little bit vague. So this is what is known as indo port. I don't know how to pronounce this properly. I want to say Portier because I feel like it's named after the name Portia, but people say Portale, people say Portali. Anyway, I'm just gonna say port. It has those wings that come out laterally, and it has that really dark texture, elongated leaf. It's absolutely stunning. And when they hybridize plants with the Indoport, it's just mwah, so beautiful. I would love to own I'd love to own an Indoport, but I'd love to also I'd also love to own Indoport hybrids. But it looks so much like a regular port in a lot of ways. I don't know that there's actually any port in there, or maybe it was just like a mutated plant that ended up looking like port, but there's no denying that it's absolutely gorgeous. It's so pretty. And it looks so wrong once again, but it's so pretty. But knowing how much I love that wide flattened sinus, literally any plant that looks like this, sign me up. So yeah, that's my list of 12 plants. And I wanted to do a little honorable mention of whatever the this is. I was looking up photos to put in this video and I came across this thing. The poster is just called the Anthurium hybrid. It looks like that plant took a few wrong turns and then ended up at the perfect destination. This is the kind of stuff that I love in like these messed up hybrids. They produce such cool things. Where is that midrib going? Like, where is it going? Why is it pink? And why is it poking out so much? And like, it seems like it's warped the leaf. It just looks so wrong in all the right ways. I love this thing. It's very dangerous when you're talking to Indonesian sellers, because you ask for something, they always have something to show you, and just like, you just got someone on the other side showing you plants and offering you plants, and it's very intoxicating. I've been there. I avoid doing that now. I used to entertain all the sellers that, well, not all, but like a lot of the sellers that end up in my inbox. But now I have to, like, I need to not talk to them, because otherwise I end up going to Jing and saying, Jing, can we do a group order to Indonesia, please? I really want this plant. And then she's so nice that she'll just do it. So I'm not allowing myself the luxury of just like, you know, perusing all these sellers lists. But if you were more financially blessed, then it is very fun to talk to these sellers and just see what they got. But again, proceed with caution. Don't buy plants just for the name. They will throw whatever name they think you want to hear on the plant. I'm not trying to blanket say everyone does that, but it's very common for that to happen. So just take it all with a grain of salt. So yeah, that's my list. That's my list. I'm sticking to it. Honestly, making this list made me really miss importing from Indonesia. Those are such fun days. Like, it's just different. It's just different from importing from like Ecuagenera or tropicals, because it feels like a treasure hunt. It's like you're at the thrift store and you're just like rummaging through stuff that's like a one-off and you just don't know what you're gonna find. And it's like the thrill of the hunt is much more present in Indonesian importing. So yeah, hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, I've been able to add to your wish list today. But yeah, I would actually want to do another video like this, but not focusing on Indonesian plants. So if you have any other suggestions, please leave it in the comments. And then before I go, super quick little announcement. If you are located in the US or Canada and you're looking for plants to buy while the weather is nice, this Friday, June 16th, Charmaine and I are doing a live sale with North Shore Tropicals. So it is a North Shore Tropicals live sale on Instagram, 3 p.m. Pacific time. We're just gonna do it like Ecuagenera tropical style. We're gonna show you the plants on live, tell you the price, tell you the code, you claim it in the comments. we did that for the first time but at the last Tropicals pop-up for all the plants that didn't sell at the pop-up, and it went really well. Like pretty much everything sold. So there was definitely demand for plants that could be sent to the US. For those Tropicals plants, we couldn't send it to the US. I think there's definitely regulations surrounding exporting plants that you've just imported. I think you're supposed to have it for a certain amount of time before they will allow you to export it again to the States. So it would kind of like be a little bit of a risky move to import from Ecuador and then immediately export it to the States. So we couldn't do it for that sale, but a lot of American viewers were asking for live sales that would include them. So this sale, whether you're in US or Canada, everything is good to go. So I'm gonna bring some plants to sell. It's gonna be mostly Lauren's plants, but Charmaine and I will bring some stuff to sell. I'm gonna try to offload a lot of propagations prior to my vacation. So hopefully I will see you guys there. Once again, it's Friday, June 16th, 3 p.m. Eastern on the North Shore Tropicals Instagram. All right, that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a like. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.